you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Campbell Rapin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I want to talk about purpose. And it's a rare thing when I invite somebody onto our platform to talk about purpose, because I think it is a lived thing versus a thing you quest for and something you throw way in the distance. But we want to talk about harnessing purpose and in particular, using it to inspire connection. And I think connection is the name of the game. This is not a new thing for a new year, new season, new month, new day, whatever. This has been an embodiment of a principle that I've lived my whole life around. And I want a megaphone on it in this new year. And today I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest. This is Melissa Fors Shackelford, who's going to come to us to really help us understand in the marketing lane, how do we actually live purpose and how do we keep connection front and center to win for ourselves and our values, win for our clients, and win in a way that's really competitive without competing with each other. So welcome. I'm super excited to have you here.
So excited to be here, Christine. I tell you, I love your episodes. I've been watching them for a long time. And really, one of your episodes even inspired me to start my own YouTube channel. Woo-hoo! So I attribute that to you and to one of your guests. So
I love that. That's awesome to hear. And guys, this is it. So if you're listening now and you're thinking, I feel inspired by either content, please make the move. This is the year that big impact is possible. This is the moment. And it all starts by you showing up. And I'm super grateful. That's a really lovely meet cute in my business.
No, it absolutely is. And it's what you said, you make impact by showing up. Yeah. And that's what sort of one of your episodes inspired me to show up even further on a YouTube channel.
I love that. Because guys, showing up is the hardest bit. It's easy to do lip service, but I will tell you, getting in the room, recognizing what rooms you're in, who you're surrounding yourself with. I heard something great in my network. Scott McGregor, who is I'm just a big fan of the work he does. He said, if your network is coasting, you're coasting too. And I thought, I am not going to be in the coasting lane. It's not the way I roll. And I'm glad to see you coming to play and saying, step into a bigger game. So let's talk about this whole word, because I think it's bandied around a lot. I think nobody knows what it means, and it means a million things. So just start with an orientation piece. What does purpose mean, and how do you see it in the lane of practical marketing?
And I appreciate what you said at the beginning, that purpose is very personal to everyone. And it's not something that I can teach you what my purpose is. I can just show you. And I did write a book about purpose as it relates to marketing. And in the book, I define purpose as the authentic, motivating reason for being, the force that gives direction, meaning, and connection to both your work and your life. Mm-hmm. And I think about that, really the motivating reason for being. I can use that as a person. What gives direction and meaning to my life? I can also use that as an organization or for my brand.
I think this is important because it's not outside. That's what I hear when you say this. Like, it is what I would call a guiding North Star. It's like a fingerprint. And it is something unique to you. So be aware of other people trying to put ownership on or trying to make you wear a coat that's the wrong size, the wrong shape, the wrong style for you. I love this as an orientation.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. And I think I'm going to just use that, the fingerprint. I think that's beautiful, especially when you're thinking about whether yourself and your brand or your organization and your organization's brand. Every time you have to think about it as really being unique, and it needs to be your own North Star. And for myself as a solopreneur, I think about myself as my brand and what do I want to be known for? And I have to start with what gives me meaning.
Okay, so let's ask, how do you actually start this journey of this? Because I think the challenge in the world that's out there right now, selling you complexity, selling you a version, a one-size-fits-all. Where do you actually start so that it can show up authentic, so it can show up as a direction marker? Because I think a lot of people would say, sounds awesome. Sounds also like a unicorn. How do I get here?
Exactly. Well, and it shouldn't. I think it really starts with yourself. And this is where I appreciate a lot of your conversations, because you do talk about purpose and how to find your purpose, and you live it. And so I think that's a great example. But for me, in my experience, I can think about myself. It's really taking the time to understand what motivates me, what are my values, what's important to me. And frankly, that's kind of how I became a solopreneur, is I realized that I was in situations that didn't match my values, and I wanted to live my values, and I wanted to have that be part of my work. So I think if you're thinking about your own self and your own values, what motivates you, what gets you up in the morning, and it's taking that time to think about that, what fills you up, and is the time during the day, is what you're doing during the day matching those values or what fills you up? And if you're doing things that don't fill you up, that don't follow your North Star, then maybe you need to rethink it, and maybe take just some kind of starting with just some small actions that say, I'm going to do this every day because it really matches my North Star and it fills me up with meaning. And you could start small and it'll get bigger. The same thing for a brand. When you're starting to think about marketing, these days, consumers know, whether it's business to business or just general population consumers, they know when you're being performative. They know when you're not aligned with your values, because they today want to work with organizations and brands that match their values.
And I think stating them is key. Mm-hmm. You said you have to jump off the deep end. Guys, this is two things you're doing. You're slowing down enough to check inside. Am my actions and where I'm spending my day aligned, congruent, disruptive, at odds? And then if you are, listening to what you hear as the answer to this. And it does feel like a deep end. And guys, there isn't necessarily, to your point, a magic pill that's going to say I can just change everything in a nanosecond. But this freedom comes, this inspired purpose comes from a decision. It's all about being decided, saying who I am, this is my one shot, this is my life, this is I'm here for a reason. Don't be sloppy with the gift.
And it echoes back to what you said about impact. It's making that first step, and that's how you make the impact. You take that first step towards living a kind of a life and having a business that matches your values and that fills you up. And like you said, you can't just do it all in one step, but if you take that one small action every day, then it'll grow into more and more and more. And when I think about my work as a marketing leader and how I coach my clients and I coach organizations, it's so important that they start with knowing themselves and what they stand for as a brand. And it doesn't have to mean that they're some big global brand like Patagonia who has a mission to save the planet. You don't have to be like that. It can just be that you want to help your customers live their best lives, or your customers do something. You just need to know and be really clear on that. And then as you align your marketing messaging with that, that's where the magic happens. And that's where you can really build those strong, lifelong connections with your customers. And honestly, that's what we all want to do.
I think we say it all the time in our business. I say it to my clients all the time. You get hired for your opinion. You get hired for your values, because they're the two things that are non-negotiable. I am looking for a gap to be filled if I'm a client looking to provide or buy into a service provider, and I'm looking for somebody who I believe will be safe, will live in principles that I can respect and live with. And when we do that, people have to use, I think you said that, this great spidey sense. Mm-hmm. If it's out, we hear it like a really dissonant chord. We feel it, we observe it, we're like, well, if it's off over here, there could be a pattern that's off over many places. And so you're saying slow down. You're saying check in with yourself. And I want to tackle something here, because you say, it can take some time and it doesn't always stay true north. So talk to me a little bit about how and what best practices we can have that keep us here, because purpose isn't set. It isn't one point. It can evolve. And how do we tackle that?
And all of us are evolving all the time. And brands and organizations are evolving over time. So for me, it really comes down to a practice of alignment. So when you're aligning with those values and when your team is as well, you can feel it, and that's when the magic happens. And so from a marketing perspective, you've oftentimes got a designer and a writer and someone building your website. Making sure everyone is aligned to that true north is really important. And as you evolve, it's keeping them in alignment with that evolution. And part of it, a little bit, is giving yourself and your team grace to be able to evolve over time. Because sometimes whatever your values were and what you stood for 5 years ago are very different than today. I think about myself as a marketing leader, very different today than I was 5 years ago. What I prioritize and what I see works is very different. And so I've had to give myself grace to also evolve myself and what is my purpose. Same thing for my teams and same thing for the clients that I coach. We need to have a little bit of grace with that, but making sure everyone is aligned, moving in the right direction. I mean, that's also how you get really high performing organizations, because there's all kinds of data out there that shows purpose-driven organizations perform better. And a lot of that is because the alignment with their employees and everybody is aligned to what is their purpose and what is their ultimate goal.
As we evolve, I'm curious your perspective on how do we talk about evolution that's in place and what best practices can we have? Because truthfully, there is such an important thing that happens. Recognizing the shift, recognizing that while we used to do this and it was acceptable and desired, as we cast forward, as we look to the horizon, I'm not only communicating it, I'm inviting you to step here, and I will need to potentially course correct if we slide back to that previous iteration. So in organizations and as a business owner, you've said, like, I've had lots of changes. How do you actually start to say explicitly, yeah, not cool. That's an old version. We're not doing it anymore. What do you think we need to do? Because I think breaking it down in nuts and bolts and really basic steps is so important here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree with that. I think that's such a powerful point that you just made. When I think about just overall for a brand and their marketing, the marketing and the brand needs to be living and breathing, and it's not something that's stagnant. So that's what gives you the opportunity to, on a regular basis, to go back and check, to say, okay, this is what we've defined as our mission, vision, values. This is what we've defined as our value proposition. That shouldn't be something that sits on the shelf. It needs to be a living, breathing thing. So when we think about evolving and not hearkening back to what we were in years past, making sure we take those off the shelf and we re-examine those on a regular basis to say, does this mission, vision, values still fit with what we want to stand for, what we want to be known for, what we want customers to know us for, and does our value proposition, which kind of ties to that, what our customers know us as, does that still resonate? And every year or on a regular basis, to be able to take that off the shelf and ask those questions, and to be able to make sure all of that is an evolving thing is really important. And beyond that, with looking at your brand and your marketing, and you've talked a lot about this on your different episodes, is looking at what does success mean? So are we still being successful? And if we're not, we can start to take those extra time to re-examine what is our mission, vision, values, what is our value proposition, what do we want to be known for, and what do our customers think we're known for.
Intent is everything here. As a practice, something I model, I do it myself, I model it to every client that comes through my services, is we take what I call CEO days. And a big part of this is the check with the orientation. What brings oxygen? What are we really excited about? Not the nuts and bolts of tasks. This isn't a catch-up day. This is an admin. This is very much a vision-focused exercise, and I do it personally quarterly. Am I heading in the right direction? Am I climbing the right mountain? Are the right people with me? Am I equipping them to be successful? And what does success look like in the next 90 days? And when we do this, I will tell you, the butterflies and the I love my life and gosh, this is so cool and I have the best business out there always comes to the forefront. And that's why, of course, social media always says, like, champagne happens a lot in your life. I'm like, I love what I'm doing. And it is because I check with my values. It is because the lived experience is here. And I think what you say here is so critical. Intent is one. And asking your customers, asking your peers, am I living what I say? And please, you guys got to be brave here. Jump in the deep end with us. You're not always going to get a yes, you are.
And sometimes the customers think of you in a different way than you want to be known for. And when there has that dissonance, you need to pull that together because it's so important to have that be in alignment. And what was it? Jeff Bezos says your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Yeah. So it's not what you're defining, it's what they're defining about you. And so you nailed it when you said you might not always hear from your customers. They might not always say about you what you want them to, but that gives you some work to do. And that, what you're talking about, like those CEO days, taking that time to reassess, it's really also pulling it all into alignment and making sure there's that alignment. And as a marketer, that's gold. I just see that as gold when you have everyone from the top down in alignment and your customers also are talking about you in a way that you want them to.
And inclusivity is a big part of this because you've said it's one thing to cast a vision. That's kind of the easy bit, my friends, just so we're clear. The ideas is the easy bit of the business world, but it's the loop. It's the feedback loop from customers, clients, and I'd love for you to talk about this inclusive communication as a competitive advantage and how important it is to hold the line when you do have a step outside of what you hope for. Because I remember saying to everyone, I said, if your standard is so low that you always hit it, that's a problem. I don't know any business owner, myself included, that we don't have moments going, well, that was rather epically falling short of our capability and our expectations. Let's clean up and let's check the systems. But for you, because you've got a great track record in this, you're someone I respect in this world. How do we tackle this piece?
I think, first of all, I just want to call out what you said is that nobody hits it every time and everybody has missteps. And when we talk about marketing, certainly I can look back on my career and I see missteps, but that's how we learn and we grow and we get better when we acknowledge those missteps. So thank you for calling that out and being transparent because so many people, we have on social media, everyone has this curated success and people forget that in reality, we all make missteps. And even when we're talking about inclusivity from a marketing perspective, I've made missteps, my teams have made missteps, but a lot of it is taking the time to re-examine and to do better the next time. And that's how we all get better. So I'm absolutely 100% with you on that. From an inclusive marketing standpoint, I think it's not only the right thing to do, but it's also very strategic because we need to all think about broadening who our customers are. And we can think about inclusivity from a number of different ways. I work a lot with healthcare and healthcare adjacent organizations. And so oftentimes I remind them that there's 25% of the world that's living with a disability of some sort. And we have to remember that that's an audience, that's 25% of the population we want to be able to work with us. And so that comes down to things like making sure your website is accessible, making sure all of your videos have closed captions. I mean, just some very basic things to make sure you're opening up what you're doing and opening up your communication to the broadest possible audience. They really just should be table stakes in this world today with modern marketing techniques, but also people need to remember not only is it the right thing to do, but this is a huge population that we want to make sure our message can reach.
I just think you said my favorite line ever. Inclusivity is table stakes, guys. Getting in the room and broadening that room is a responsibility. And I want to invite you to choose it. I have someone in my network who is my barometer for this. I get a lot of emails, to talk about failing here. I get a lot of emails saying, I can't read all of this because I'm visually impaired to a degree. Some things are good, some things are not. And I appreciate every single time I get this because it reminds me to raise my standard. It reminds me to think broadly, not through my lens, but the lens of my next customer. And to your point, this is smart money. This is also great heart, and it won't happen by accident. But there's a huge champion out there. You should champion for them and they will champion for you. So I love that you're bringing this to the table and that it is table stakes.
Yes, absolutely. It needs to be for all of us. Even in healthcare, there's other things that we need to think about from inclusivity. Like I have to coach people that we should have the great reading level grade be really low for when we're doing healthcare communications to our customers, because people, you never know for what reason, if they have low literacy, if English is their second language, you never know all the different reasons. The other thing is that in today's day and age, you can be the smartest person with the most education in the world, but your attention span has gotten so small. You also need to contemplate putting a kind of a lower grade reading level on all of our communications too, just because of the fact that people they're not reading books anymore. They want it in the bullets. They want it in the short form that they can consume. And again, it comes down to people have a really powerful message. You want the most possible, kind of broadest possible audience to be able to consume your message.
Well, and I know the thing that I heard a couple of years ago, and it was really important, we've really pushed in the past year for this, is more snackable content. And that's exactly the purpose behind it, because you don't need to have all 12 verses out on the first go. You need to recognize digestibility for a broader mix. And this is something I want you to champion in your business so that you can inspire connection and really live your purpose for your people. Let's just be clear, your purpose is a North Star for your people. It is not going to be digestible for everybody. And don't ever mistake that that is golden good news. And I want to ask you, in your world right now, you're championing hard, you're advocating for both your own business growth and for others. What's working right now to amplify your message?
You mentioned your network at the beginning. And for me, really leaning into my network has been the first step in amplifying my message. And so for me, starting with my network, leaning into them has been important. Beyond that, a couple years ago just said, I'm going to take risks. And that's been really, really, I think, important for me in my success and for amplifying my message is taking risks. I mentioned at the beginning of this that you had one of your episodes inspired me to start leveraging YouTube. For me, that was a big risk. I started doing video on LinkedIn. That was a big risk. All of these risks I've taken have paid off, and they've paid off in different ways. They paid off in clients, they paid off in broader impressions, but they've also, I feel like I grow every time I take a leap and every time I take a risk. And so I try to encourage others to do the same and to follow my lead, that do something that makes you uncomfortable if it's going to help you grow as a person, but it's also odds are going to amplify your message, broaden your reach, and help you talk to more people and bring more into your own network.
I love this so much. I actually have a similar goal on my commitment to myself. This is, again, standing in the purpose that, guys, if you thought I took risks before to get where I got to, well, you haven't seen anything yet. The big challenge is to step even bigger, to step with more investment, more resources, more getting into rooms of people that are moving, because we have to lead with light and we have to do this in an inclusive way. So I want people to come find you. I want people to come learn about your work you're doing. Where do they do it?
I love to connect with people on LinkedIn, Melissa Fors Shackelford. It's a great place to have a conversation. They can also reach me on my website, melissaforsshackelford.com, or my book's website, harnessingpurpose.com. I love to connect with people. I love to have conversations. Chatting with you like this has just been a wonderful treat, especially after I've watched so many of your episodes. That's been a treat. I love to meet people and do their podcasts and speak at their events. And so great ways to reach me are, like I said, my website or connecting with me on LinkedIn.
So guys, take the leadership moment right now to go and connect with her. Start that conversation, because your next client is led by you. Your vision, your purpose, your North Star. It is about really always connecting first. So make the first step. Melissa, thank you for being our guest today. Super fun to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrapin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all